have to presuppose that you know that there is a supernatural being in order to properly posit as a cause of an abnormal religious episode, and vice versa. You'd already have to be committed to a naturalistic worldview in order to make sure that you never need to posit a God in order to explain an unusual religious experience. So says Shook, but we can argue more about this. But I find the arguments very fascinating. Moving on to belief commitment, what we can do is we can look at, this is not my computer, but you have a message. If that happens again, he can come up and kill that, but hopefully it won't happen again. We can look at not only the belief systems that a person has, but we can ask interesting questions about consistencies or inconsistencies among those belief systems. And that's, of course, a fascinating exercise for psychology and social psychology, among other disciplines, to ask about. Now, let's bring in a little bit more of an intersection with naturalism. Let's bring in biological evolution. For evolution, looking at religion as a human phenomenon that's been around for quite a while, so biological evolution might be relevant to it. Beliefs correlated with error, right? People believing that there is a God when there isn't. People thinking that they're experiencing a God when there may not be a God. Beliefs correlated with sacrifice. Religion does require sacrifice. Religion is hardly the only belief system that requires sacrifice, but it does require some sort of compromise between what an individual might selfishly or egotistically want and what might be best for the group or for God. And beliefs correlated with risk are problematic. It is possible for a robust worldview like a religion or other kinds of worldviews, like, for example, a political system, to get a person to put themselves into a great deal of harm, to take great risks that they might not ordinarily take. For example, participating in a war or something like that. Beliefs correlated even to a moderate degree with any of those three things can be problematic. In other words, how is it possible that if there's a lot of these things going on with a belief system, such as a religious system, or by parallel we could talk about political systems or economic systems, but focusing on religion, why over the long haul, over many, many, many generations, sufficient for some sort of appreciable genetic change to take place by biological evolution, how could religion sustain itself in large numbers of human beings if it wanted to be advantageous? Wouldn't it get weeded out? Right? If you've got large numbers of religious people periodically undergoing during their lifetimes great error, great sacrifice, and great risk, wouldn't the people not willing to do those things and not willing to buy into a belief system that requires those things be more advantageous in the very long run? So this is an interesting question that evolution allows us to ask and maybe answer. We'll see about that, but at least that question is out there, right? Another thing about consistency among belief commitments and whether it's good for a person to have them, religions, it's been pretty thoroughly researched, generally conforms to very basic and quite universal moral intuitions. And here I reference the Harvard professor Mark Hauser, of which we could say more perhaps later. But he's come out with just another study showing that if you give very simple, basic moral problems, you don't find much difference in knowing what the right thing to do is, no matter the culture or religion or ethnicity or where on the planet you ask these questions. This suggests, again, from both a biologically evolutionary perspective and a culturally evolutionary perspective, that morality is far older than any religions we see around today. In fact, morality might be just far older than religion. This is Hauser's conclusion. Some others are agreeing with him. It might seem plausible I'll just say a little bit more about this. The reason why you might be able to estimate the age is because only the human species having these basic common moral intuitions for a very long time could satisfactorily explain why no matter what religion you overlay on top of the human species, human beings still pretty much have the same basic moral intuitions. That's generally true with other sorts of correlations that we see between belief systems and basic intuitions on other things. So that lends support to the idea that the human species came to some sort of species agreement on some basic moral intuitions and hasn't been willing to dramatically change those moral intuitions in the course of cultural evolution since. Religions tend to go along with them, or indeed even support and confirm them. Second, religions do violate other kinds of intuitions, not about basic morality, but about what might be called sort of common sense natural intuitions. And here Pascal Boyer, Scott Atran are two prominent researchers, and there's been a lot of research since. Their books came out now approaching 10 years ago, but this is gaining steam. The basic idea is that religions at some point, somewhere in their narrative, asks you to believe something that is counterintuitive to our ordinary categories of the kinds of things in the world. And one perhaps simplistic but nevertheless accurate way might be to say, well, we discriminate at a pretty early and basic level between inanimate things, vegetative plant life, animals, and people. And of course there are lots of subcategories, right? But and kids pick this up very early on, right? It's easy to teach these natural intuitions. Rocks are very different from vegetation, are very different from animals and so forth. And there's some overlap, but we expect them to do different things. What happens in religions is you find talking trees. You find natural things like rocks having magical powers. You find animals that can change into humans or back again. You find people that can fly, right? So there's sort of contradictions to these basic categories. And interestingly, they're not for that reason automatically rejected. Instead, they have sometimes the rather opposite effect. They're very easily memorable. It's very easy to tell a story and get it repeated and remembered for lots of people and over generations if your tale has something striking and counterintuitive to it. So religions may be able to take advantage of this sort of memorability in order to get that narrative going over generations, and hence that's one very useful mechanism by which religion can sustain itself and sustain the same sort of narrative about deities or paranormal goings-on over the many number of generations that it would take to have a sustained religion. Now, religions are counterfactual. That's this error business that I mentioned earlier. But I want to ask the question, so what? Right? Religions are counterfactual, but so what? For example, the significance of an unusual experience of some sort of existential commitment, right? An unusual experience like a religious experience, causing you to commit to belief in the existence of something. That's the existential commitment. You're committed to, for example, the existence of a God that's talking to you. And that's your story of why you're having that religious experience, right? It might not lie in some sort of simplistic correspondence with an external reality. It might not be just about that you think a God exists. Many of our beliefs are just representational in a very simplistic sense, but they're usually much more than that.